worked it out. Who's sitting where? Hi, everyone.
Oh, wow.
Thanks for being here, guys.
No pressure.
No pressure. It's like Wembley Stadium. So we're here to talk about celebrity activism. And it's a bit of a hackneyed, cliched phrase, but I'm kind of interested in how you both look at it, because you both have very big public profiles. Yeah, that was for me. Thank you very much. How do you balance with the work that you do, the political work or the social cause stuff that you both do? Rosario, why don't we start with you?
Balance.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that because I grew up around community activists, my mom was a teenage mom. Her mom used to take her to marches around labor rights and putting together unions. They worked for the Ladies International Garment Workers Union that my great-grandmother also was a part of. My mom worked for an organization called Women's Inc. that was helping women who were abused to be able to kind of restart their lives with their children. I grew up in New York in a squat, which was an abandoned building. It was during the HIV/AIDS epidemic. It was during the crack heroin epidemic. It was, so for me, housing, addiction, LGBTQI rights, teen pregnancy, education and access to it, healthcare. These were all things that I just grew up around, and community organizers that were trying to do something about it. So at the age of 15, when I got discovered and I did my first film, and I started getting a microphone thrust in my face, for me, it was the opportunity to start talking about my heroes. And I had, people that I loved in modeling, because it was also the era of, the supermodel, which was amazing, and being in New York and being so close to that, and it was great actresses and people who were pushing the boundaries in music, and you had Grace Jones, who was kind of really just pushing the boundaries of what it is to just be a celebrity and to be an artist. So I had so many different heroes, but a huge proponent of who I looked up to, and my community were those community organizers and activists. So I always, from the very beginning, had that hand in hand. And the very first film I did was a movie called Kids that had to talk about Larry Clark, that had to talk about kids who are out there, latchkey kids who are not being watched. And they're doing some crazy stuff, and HIV and AIDS being an issue that could affect them for the rest of their lives as they're just being kids. So even from the very beginning, my art had activism embedded in it, and I've just continued with that my whole life.
So what about you? I mean, you took on quite a big public profile recently with an interview you gave about an experience you had with a magazine. Why don't you tell us about that and tell us the sort of how that came about?
Definitely. So, models nowadays have... Thank you,
For the hometown hero, right? This is it.
It's my country.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of my country. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you, guys. So coming back to the story. So, models nowadays, we're not just pretty faces that have no voices. Social media really has changed the whole industry. And, with all the when the Weinstein scandal came out and more people start speaking out, and I had a situation that happened to me almost at the same time. And, when you have millions, you have such a big audience. You have a direct contact to millions of people, and people that you start having a responsibility. And to me, I had a situation that happened to me. I had a good team around me that could advise me on how to handle it. And we decided together that this was, timing-wise, was pretty important to come out and tell and call out in a particular... sorry, I'm a bit nervous. It's a lot of people. And we could call out by name someone, or it's not a magazine, that it's something that it's not right.
Right.
And that was very important for me to be able to do that. And not just using your voice to post using your social media to put beautiful pictures, but maybe I can help other people not going through what I did. And that's when your social media and your celebrity becomes, you kind of have a duty to do that.
Right. And you have a large social media footprint, right? Like 9 million people across Facebook and
Twitter,
and
Instagram.
Right. So do you feel that I mean, 20 years ago, 10 years ago even, you wouldn't have had models, actresses, entertainers with such a direct route
Definitely not.
to the public. So how, there's more responsibility, or you have more responsibility now, don't you?
Definitely more responsibility and a bigger voice. Like someone is gonna think twice before doing something to you when you can go directly and just accuse that person of what they did and call them out directly to this big, broad audience. And the same thing to actually talk about things that you're really passionate about. And like charities and subjects that are really important to us. And you can really come through and get your message or other people's messages as well. Because, and it's really, it becomes a really important part of your celebrity persona.
Yeah. Rosario, you went kind of a step beyond. I mean, you co-founded a group. You went Voto Latino. I guess 10, 12 years ago?
2004.
13 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, and I wondered. I was thinking about this before the panel. In the recent U.S. presidential election, there was a sort of a backlash against celebrities speaking out in favor of a particular candidate. Celebrities who spoke out in favor of Hillary Clinton. And it seemed to be that
I did it for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, you were for Bernie Sanders. But from the Trump campaign, some Bernie fans in the house. But the Trump campaign, I thought, managed to kind of divide. They associated some of the Hollywood support for Hillary and painted it in quite a negative way that seemed to play well with Trump voters. Did you sense any of that? Or
well, I think it's also because there was so much in the media that was trying to mock, like trying to do a level of celebrities and that Clinton was able to get these A-list kind of folks and Trump was getting these
the real
B-list kind of people. And it's like, I think that's where a lot of that came from and sort of just making it about branding. But the reality is both of those people were big names in the vernacular of the planet for decades. I grew up with Trump in New York. And Clinton's obviously always been a figure as well for such a long time. So, ultimately, it was this was a meme election. This was about branding and the fact that the actual people who were running for office were celebrities of a certain type.
Right.
So it was a weird thing to kind of bring up, but it just was, again, a lot of ridiculousness. It was just about kind of, again, scapegoating a major conversation and kind of belittling it and distracting us from what were the real issues and things. And with Voto Latino, we had been nonpartisan. We still are nonpartisan. This was the first time I'd ever lent my name to a candidate, and I was just really excited to do that for the opportunity of having a grassroots presidency.
And you were all in for Bernie, right?
I was his surrogate, and I was a delegate for California, and so I really went through the whole process. And and it was I learned quite a lot. But this is a really remarkable point in time, where folks like them have had a lot of privilege through their successes that have given them a kind of leverage that the average person didn't have before. And now that's not true. Exactly what you're talking about with social media is, as everyone, I did a panel here with Nigel Farage and a couple people from the Trump campaign and they're trying to go social media needs to be held accountable. Well, immediately I called him out and said, what do you mean? Well, social media, of course, could be held accountable, but that's never going to happen until humans are accountable.
Right. Yep.
And the fact that Brexit was the premise of that, just like with the Trump campaign, was a lot about scapegoating the other and the immigrants for the problems and really tapping into a very real anger and fear that is going on where people are really dealing with economic problems and really dealing with lots of other things and trying to say that it's about this other. And so with Brexit, it's like we're going to take all this money that's going to the NHS to all these people who are coming in from, who are stealing our, doctors and our healthcare, and our tax dollars, and we're going to put it to the NHS. And then the very next day, when they won, go, but we're not going to do that, and not being held accountable then to that bold-faced lie.
So does social media mean you can hold these people to account? Because
that's what you saw with Weinstein. That's what you saw with this. There's as people talk about the open secrets The reality is there's a lot of enablers that have been around that. This is the generation that's been preaching tolerance to us. We have to tolerate each other. But in that tolerance, what they've also been telling us is that, interns don't get paid, and that, women have this particular role, and we get to have incremental change. And and I think it's been a lot of the movements of the masses that have been going no, interns should get paid, and, LGBTQ people are people too, and, women have rights, and we need equality, and we need compensation, and I don't want to feel like I have to wait 10, 20, 30 years for that. I want it right now.
Yeah.
And I don't have to go to the police officer anymore. I get to just tell you, yo, this guy touched me inappropriately, and that's whack. What are we going to do about that? Boo. And even if it's just that, I mean, that's what they've been doing. You saw Trump doing that with lock her up. These people from these big, positions are able to put people in NDAs and say, you should be afraid of being in breach of contract. I'm going to do things that are illegal. But you're not going to be able to do anything about it because I'm powerful and you're not. And now with social media, we're powerful.
Exactly.
And that's really critically important because they've used libel and they've used insinuation and to try to demean people and hold people down, just by using their power. And now we're going, okay, maybe I won't get believed. Maybe I won't, if I took this to court, maybe I wouldn't get anything. Because with women's rights, the fact that women spoke up, and men have spoken up. Kevin Spacey lost work because people for many years have been working to put on the books sexual harassment laws that actually do exist. So people got fired. Weinstein had to step down because people have been doing that work, and we need more to do to make it even more safe for people.
People need to start getting accountable for their actions.
Yep.
It really is important.
Are there any negatives to that if you're putting yourself out there in social media and you're saying, advocating for something in particular?
Definitely.
What are the negatives?
I mean, everything you say publicly can turn the opposite of what you expected. When I share my Louise story, it could have been the complete opposite, and everyone could be at me that's so hypocrite. You've done naked pictures before. What's the problem? There's no big deal. That could have been the way that it went. And in my case, I have to make sure my message is going to go through the right way, to the point where there's not going to be any any other interpretation to it.
Right.
my first language is not English, so I work with someone that can make sure my English is perfect. So they're like, oh, she can even speak English. I make sure you work with lawyers to make sure what you can say, what you cannot say, because you also don't want to get sued with defamation because you said something more than you were supposed to. And that's important as well. And that's the downside of having a social media, is that you actually have to control really precise what you're gonna say, because I can't just for example, I can't really be public about politics in America. I'm an immigrant there. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get kicked out of the country. It's my life. It's my job. So I have to be extremely careful how I'm gonna give my opinion about the situation. But there's other things I can be. This Louis. I had all this team around me. I had proofs, and you know what? It was the right timing as well, I think, and you just always have to make sure you get the message through the right way.
Right. Do you feel the same way? Do you have a filter on social media when you're making particular points? I mean, you have less of a, you're not going to get kicked out of the country. I mean, what?
No, but it's exactly what you said earlier, of just going, and then, they made it a whole big point to say celebrities shouldn't be talking about politics.
Yeah.
Why not?
You know what I mean? So they try to demean or devalue your voice or your contribution and to silence you in some way, shape, or form, because it's dangerous. And they don't have a risk assessment for that keeps them in power. So at the very top, I mean, I say we're the Daily Show generation, where we can go, no, run the tape. You literally lied. You just lied. And I can show you when you said, and I didn't say that. No, that's actually word for word what you said.
You said that this year.
And it's it's amazing. On the other side, it's infuriating. This position of power where certain people have, where they can just bold-faced lie and get away with it. And then on the other hand, we have to be incredibly careful about what we say or what we do, because our whole character can be defamed from it. So it's
you say this whole thing, and then you do one sentence that sometimes is a joke or sarcastic. You can't be sarcastic on social media. I learned that the hard way.
You learned that.
I learned that the hard way. And all of a sudden, they forget your whole point, and now they focus in that little joke. She said this. And you're like, that was a joke, kids.
But is there a cost to it, to speaking out?
Definitely.
Do you find fewer people tune into what you're saying or doing on social media if you're making a particular point about?
Yeah, I mean, as a model, social media is now part of the job in terms of we get booked because of the numbers we have. We get paid more because of the number of followers we have, and the likes and and being vocal about these things doesn't really get a lot of engagement.
Right.
A selfie might get 400,000 likes. I'll post a post, and if I get 50K about me being vocal, if I post something about me being vocal about something that I really truly care, I'm lucky if I get 50K or something. It's a big...
It's a trade-off then.
Yeah, and it hurts your numbers when you have to look at the bigger. In the end of the day, it's part of my job having good numbers in social media, and you want to make sure those are not kind of screwed up. So you kind of have to think about not posting too much of that. But then I feel as part of this community, it's my duty to do so. So it becomes. And I feel like it's a lot of the reasons you don't see more models or actors or singers being vocal about it. It's because, it doesn't get you that many likes.
Right. Okay.
And you saw that with, Asia Argento said she had to leave Italy.
Yeah.
Because the pressure that was coming at her after coming out, and people defaming her and going, why did you say this? You're lying, or who cares? Or why are you making a big deal out of this? And she was the one who was torn down. To the point where she had to leave the country. So it's if you imagine that was the reaction in 2017, what that would have been like had she actually come out when it happened. So the timing really is a really critical thing. I mean, Caitlyn Jenner was just here talking about the same thing. She could not do this years ago, but it's a different climate and space right now that she felt comfortable. She could really see that there could be a true benefit for it, and that's where we're continuing to go there. We have a moment in time, and I brought this up a couple of times because Sophia was here, and you had a conversation between Sophia and Einstein, these robots and AI. But the reality is she just got citizenship in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And there are tens of millions of climate refugees alone
that
don't have a home. And, in a conversation that in my country, and we're calling human beings illegal. Human beings are illegal, but this AI just got citizenship, So these are things that really need to be talked about. And there's in just my time alone, that what social media and technology has done in transformation to kind of push certain conversations forward, and we just have not really spoken about it. So summits like this are really critically important because we're actually doing FaceTime. And we're talking to each other, and we're really trying to figure out other ways and means to use this technology to actually have the humanity component
and you have
behind
such a direct, you don't have to go through a journalist or a magazine to get your voice out. You have such a direct way to reach people.
And you get instant feedback, and
instant feedback.
Yeah.
It's a conversation that's happening instantly. Yeah. That in minutes you can have millions of people giving an opinion about something. That's really powerful.
Well, there's a red light flashing, so unfortunately I have to call this to an end. But guys, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.